value they talk about. We work a lot also with our ecosystem there. The other one, fourth pillar here is security. And as I said, security is of paramount importance to everybody, right? And from Intel perspective, our products have always been designed from day one. It is designed with security in mind, right? It's designed in, as we call it, right? And we look at it, the multi-layer security. You need that multi-layer security. We work with a lot of our partners on, the software stack that enables that, but also to make sure that at the infrastructure level, we have that that design in at the infrastructure level, which makes it, at that point, the most difficult part, for any penetration of hackers and so on. And here I want to talk about one technology, right, which is really SGX, right? We introduced this technology called software guard extensions when we launched our third generation Xeon at the earlier part of this year, right? But SGX is not a new technology. It existed since the previous generation, right? And this technology, we soft launched it earlier to test out the market to see how people liked it and how it would work. And now we're confident enough to introduce it in the Xeons, right? In current generation Xeon. So this current generation Xeons now with SGX, we are not only talking about the data being secured at rest or in motion as it's transported. We have encryption, and that has been done for many years. But what we have not done so well is when the data is being processed, right? We were not able to secure that data very well. But now with SGX, we are able to do that, which means you can process your data still in a secure environment without having any vulnerabilities there. And that enables, for example, right, different institutions to share data. For example, in the medical environment, right, if you want to talk about using AI to predict diagnosis, you need to be able to share data. You need to have more data, right? If you only work on your own institution's data, that's okay, but it's not good enough, right? Imagine if you could share all the different institutions' data and coming together, right? Your prediction models would be much better. But then what about privacy and so on, right? But with SGX now, we can ensure that is still kept intact. You can share data and still not have that issue of privacy and having that data compromised. And there are many other usage models there as well, right? In financial industry, when you talk about how do you prevent fraud and risk, fraud and money laundering, if you can share data, you'll be able to do that much better. So those are the opportunities that we talk about. But from going back to the distributed workforce, right? What are the key things that you need to look at, or some people say challenges, but the opportunities there as well, right? Today, with the right digital infrastructure, you'll be able to address, your employees being connected, right, at all times and increase your productivity. And this really starts with creating an environment where everybody has access to your applications and your data, right? And it's got to do with connectivity, but also it has to be able to scale, right? And that's where the opportunities of the cloud comes. And also, managing this cloud today, again, that's where, OpenShift and Ansible comes in to help you manage your environment or your applications and so on. And that leads to the second part, right? Really about the multi-cloud strategy, which I talked about, right? It's complex, we know, but when you go in, today virtualization is probably something you've done. Maybe you want to move to the next stage of containerization, right? In a container environment, and that's where Red Hat OpenShift comes in. Gives you again much more flexibility. It gives you also much more faster time to market to get your services and your application out there, so that you can meet the demands of the market, right? And then create as all these new capabilities or these new business models that you want to develop. You want to be able to automate that very quickly and bring it to market, and also execute, reduce the risk, right? Again, here I mentioned again, Ansible is a great platform for you to be able to do that, right? And the last piece is like really, you want to do all this, but you want to make sure that everybody wants to mitigate the risk, right? And one of the ways to do it is really, talking about leveraging the right talent pool, not only internally, but externally, right? Work with the right partnerships there. And we believe today that Intel and Red Hat really presents a very good case of the right partners, to technology partners to work with. And why do I say that, right? Intel has one of the widest ecosystem out there. We have all the partnerships, as I said, with Red Hat, with the software partners out there, but also with the hardware partners, right? The server manufacturers and all that. We make sure that all our platforms are validated, tested with the software partners, so that it just works when it reaches you, right? But also, as I said, system integrators are also very important in that piece, right? That we have partnerships again with all the system integrators, which is ultimately the people that delivers the services to you. And as I said, the multi-cloud environment, right? Today, whether you're working with AWS, Microsoft, or Google, again, Intel works very closely with them to ensure that on their side, the infrastructure is also built with all the values I talked about earlier, right? So it's really about the end-to-end, working with the best-in-class partnership network there, and that we present in our ecosystem, so that you can execute with confidence. And so, I'll wrap up this session today and say that, this, build, plan for today, but build for the future, right? You want to be able to be what people call future-proof. So the few considerations here, right? Start with the right foundation. As I say, invest in the right technology that will help you to accelerate your digital transformation today, but also not just for today, but also look forward as you plan for tomorrow, right? And avoid some of the roadblocks, right? Work with the right ecosystem, as I shared with you in the earlier slide. The ecosystem is wide, but work with a partner that has ensured that the ecosystem delivers end-to-end for you. And last of all, execute with confidence, understanding that you've got the right foundation, right? The right partnership, the right capabilities, the right talent pool out there to support you in your digital transformation. And if you execute, in these 3 steps, we are very confident that you'll be successful in your digital transformation journey. And with that, I thank you for your attention today, and wish you a good day ahead, and look forward to engaging all of you together in our journey towards digital transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher. Digital transformation is always evolving, and it is top of every organization's agenda. It is great to hear what you are seeing in the market. Automation is a journey, and customers often ask me, where to begin? Where does it end? Does it end? To answer all your questions on this, we now have Mark Petrovelli, Managing Architect Automation Practice of Red Hat, to walk us through a step-by-step guide of the automation journey. Every journey begins with a single step. So Mark, please go ahead and take the first step for us.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today at Ansible Automates. I'd like to talk to you today about transformative automation from an IT executive's perspective. We'll also focus on how you can be an automation champion for your enterprise. So first, let's start off with a little bit of background and agenda. Who are you talking to today? My name is Mark Petrovelli. I'm a managing architect in the automation practice within Red Hat Consulting. So what does that really mean? So that means I'm responsible for delivering to our enterprise and strategic customers Ansible and the Ansible automation platform. I've been with Red Hat for about 4 years now. And before coming to Red Hat, I was an embedded software engineer. So the content we're going to see today is actually based on a couple of white papers that Red Hat has had developed. Now, the most prominent so far is the IT Executive White Paper, which rolls up some information from another Forrester report and an IDC report as well. And then in this presentation, some of the high-level areas we're going to see, we're talking about drivers and some transformation pillars. We're going to see blockers and keys for success. What do you need to do to roll out the platform? And then an automation adoption journey. How can Red Hat help you, and specifically Red Hat Services help you, as you're looking to get greater adoption of automation in your organization? And finally, a wrap up. All right, so if we look at this from a executive or management standpoint, what are some of the motivations behind the need to automate in general, right? And I think this comes as no surprise. Everybody is under pressure. Organizations are under pressure to deliver and maintain. That's an important and there. Services more quickly and securely than ever before, right? And IT can be a great enabler for an organization, but it can also be a blocker if you can't keep up with the scale that is coming in. All right, and then what are your options here? If you do want to accelerate and you want to get to market faster, you want to deploy infrastructure and services faster. Really, what are your options out there today? And really, it falls into two areas, right? You can hire, right? You can kind of go out and increase your operational and your engineering staff to meet the emerging need, or you can take a look at automation, right? And along with that, how do you innovate, not just around tooling, but around your processes as well, right? And when you do use automation, right, that's going to drive innovation, and it's going to enable you to do more with what you have in place today. All right, so automation supports transformation, right? And automation is a key piece of the digital transformation that we see organizations undergoing today. And really, if we look at what are the three pillars or three areas that are impacted, and where does automation have an impact? Really falls into three areas, right? The three pillars that we often talk about, which are people, technology, and process, right? So, from a people perspective, we're looking to improve morale, by moving from those, mundane cost center tasks, the daily toil, to contributing to more profit centers, right? And innovating. And from a technology perspective, we're looking to move from, what was previously ad hoc or manual before, to fully automated tasks and workflows. And from a process perspective, right, we want to take those existing human workflows, right, those cross-functional workflows that you have today, right, and we want to automate those, right? And what we also want to do is we want to make sure you're able to leverage automation to adapt to opportunities that are emerging within your organization, right? So, these typically fall into these three common areas here, which is move faster to market, right? So if you're building a new application, you want to be able to get that out to market faster, right? And that includes, the full stack of the application, storage, compute, networking, the platform, the application, the whole stack, be able to move faster to get to get value to market quicker. You want to be able to operate with more predictability and efficiency, right? And this kind of goes along with, agile methodologies, right? Where, it isn't so much that you're going to move a lot faster, but when you do automation and you use automation inside your enterprise, you're going to get a lot more predictability, right? And, so when it takes you X amount of time to deploy this amount of infrastructure, and that it's going out reliable, right? Because you're using automation. Also, move into new ways of working that are going to give you a competitive advantage, right? So that includes using automation to kind of collaborate across silos. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Next, I'd like to talk about what's holding organizations back from implementing and rolling out transformative automation that is going to see kind of uptake across your whole business. And I think if we take a look at one of the things we heard, when putting together the Forrester report, was that there seems to be misalignment between leadership and implementers, right? And I think for obvious reasons, that's going to be a problem as you're looking to roll out automation across all of your business, across all your different groups that you have to service. So, let's dig into that a little more and see where, there have been successes and where we might be falling short. So I think on the positive side, we're hearing 83% of implementers say they received leadership support to purchase open source automation licenses. So that's good, right? So the tooling is getting into the implementer's hands. Leadership recognizes the importance of automation and is investing in the tools. But I think, and that's just right at a base level. But if we dig a little bit deeper, into that report, we're also hearing that 1 in 4 implementers who did receive the leadership support, as in purchasing licenses for open source tooling, right, experienced, misalignment along their journey. And I think, let's dig into that a little bit. What do we mean by misalignment and where are we kind of falling short, right? And I think one area is lack of priorities, right? So, I think we're hearing a lot. I'm personally hearing as I talk to customers, and what we're seeing in these, in these papers as we interview people, is that setting priorities can be difficult. Everyone knows that automation is a strategic imperative, right? We all want to move faster, but but it needs to be more pointed if we're going to actually see success, right? And not all parts of your business are going to use automation the same way, and they may not align to your current business goals for the year. So, if you're rolling out automation, we really need to make sure that we're setting the priorities, whether that's, making sure provisioning is automated, or automating, networking, maybe automating firewall rules is the most important. But, there needs to be, focus from the top of where the priorities should be for implementing automation. And then, from a tooling perspective, determining which tools we actually want to use, right? So, I think no surprise we've been talking about Ansible, Ansible Automates and the automation platform, right? But there are a lot of tools out there. Some of that is very tailored. It's kind of bespoke tooling for particular use cases or technology. But what we need when we go to implement this is some level of agreement on the tooling we're going to use across teams, across groups, so that we don't have pockets of teams using different tooling, right? Because the real way to accelerate is to get uniform tooling or some set of standardized tooling across all your different organizations inside your business. And then the required levels of automation to achieve business goals. So, this is kind of focusing on outcomes over outputs, right? We all know we need to automate things because it's going to help us go faster, but really we need to take a step back and understand why we're trying to do that, right? So, it's important that we automate server provisioning as an example. I use that because I think everyone's very familiar with that use case. But as we look at that, how much of that do we need to automate near term, and maybe in the next step far term, so that we can achieve the business goals of, as an example, getting your application to market faster? All right, and then we were talking about business objectives a little bit in the last slide, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about that here, and kind of what are some of the drivers? How is automation supporting your firm's business objectives, right? And at a very high level, I think that often the decision to bring in automation and have it as a strategy that you want to implement automation to help you transform, there's often an event, there's a catalyst that makes that happen, right? On the more positive side, that could just be recognizing the change in the IT landscape and realizing that in order for you to maintain your competitive advantage, you need to add automation. Maybe on the more negative side, it could be something like a security breach, the fact that all of your, you have inherently a brownfield environment of infrastructure and none of it's the same, and you can't manage it from a security perspective, and that's why maybe the data breach was occurred in the first place. So really falls, it's really somewhere between those two areas, but there's a compelling event that helps push us forward. Right. And I think when talking about business objectives, the other thing is, not all areas of your business are going to have the same growth model. They're going to have different business objectives, right? And you have high growth areas of your business, right? And that could be application teams working on, AI ML applications that are really driving value for where you're looking to go, versus other parts of your business may be more traditional infrastructure based that are supporting business as usual type activities, right? And you need to, when rolling out the automation, you need to determine where you're going to get the most value for your focus areas. And another point on business objectives, if we take a look at the business leader, the perspective, where are they driving to? Where are they looking to go, right? And it falls into these four areas. Again, not an exhaustive list, but these are things that we hear often: gain competitive advantage, get to market faster, right? Improve the overall customer experience, and change and modify and transform your internal processes, right? And then, as to kind of tie it all together, right? If you have an overarching automation strategy, right, it's going to give you the ability to do more with less while still allowing you to scale to meet expanding needs. Okay, now let's talk about some key value areas that we've uncovered in conversations with customers. But also, these areas have come out of the Forrester paper as well, that we're 5 areas, high value areas for automation. And I think the first one here is, we want to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and accelerate the time to market, right? And Often organizations are bogged down with technical debt and overloaded with manual workflows, right? So, automation can create a lot of efficiency. IT automation in particular offers control by, kind of digitizing your process. So, they no longer rely on, manual intervention, human intervention, and you're going to get more value out of the automation. Eliminating islands of automation, right? So when individuals automate in isolation, right, islands of automation are created. I think we can all relate to this. Each group is trying to do the best for themselves, maybe at the expense of your larger vision, right? So different teams are automating different tasks using different tools. The effectiveness of the automation is, you're going to see a great multiplier when the solution works the same kind of across teams and departments. Number three, supporting the security needs of your organization is one of those huge focus areas that's going to give you a lot of value. And what do we, you may ask, well, what's the value other than we know we need to do security because it's important, but I think you need to look at the tangible benefits as well, considering the average cost of a data breach in 2020 was roughly $3.86 million. Security is top of mind for organizations. Right, and automation helps remove the risk that's introduced by human interaction with various pieces of your infrastructure, and it makes things consistent and reliable. I think if we go back to the Forrester study here, 56% of decision makers named improved security is a huge technical benefit, and they're going to see, and specifically by adopting automation, they were seeing large gains in their security posture. Minimize bespoke tooling. So I think we can all speak to tool sprawl in organizations. Teams will maybe take a near-term or maybe arguably a short-sighted tact of bringing in tooling to solve one particular problem, and that comes at the expense of kind of standardization across teams, right? So if you pick a very specific tool that just does firewall rule management and you're just using that for automation, right? That's one separate tool, one specific use, when the reality is if you had something that could cover that use case, and as well as cover your infrastructure and storage and operational use cases, right? That's one of the areas that we're hearing people want to focus on is get rid of the huge number of kind of purpose-built tooling and standardize. And then finally, attract and retain talent, right? So I think, if you have an automation platform and if you have standards in place and the technology you're using is, I'm not going to say cutting edge, but attractive, you're going to be able to keep people within your teams that you want, and you're also going to be able to attract new people, right? So, if you are hiring infrastructure engineers and they start asking the questions, well, what's your automation approach? What tooling are you using? What standards do you have in place, right? You want to be able to relate that, you're a forward-leaning organization, and that that when they come to work for you, right, they're going to fit into this larger automation vision that you have in place, rather than, the other solution, which is I need you to come in and write a PowerShell script to do A, B, and C, right? So that's a much greater attraction to talent. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about rolling it out, right? So how do we set the foundation? And again, this is from an executive and management perspective, right? I guess it is an overarching goal or philosophy: be a champion rather than a sponsor, right? A sponsor just pays for the tooling and then pushes it out there. A champion pays for the tooling, sponsors it, and then also goes out and socializes it and makes sure that everyone across the business understands what we're trying to do and understands the vision, right? And if you want that success that you're looking for, then the support needs to be actively, you need to have active support from the top, right? And then kind of, along those lines, here are some things on the right, some characteristics that are important, right? Share your vision for automation, across your enterprise, right? What are we trying to accomplish, right? And what does it look like? And then related to that, define what success looks like. So we're going to implement automation. Well, when we're done, or we're midway through, what does success look like, right? And this relates back to, key performance indicators that you have. You're looking to deploy infrastructure faster to support applications. You're looking to reduce operational overhead, right? It depends, right? And that factors in and aligns with your business objectives as well. Again, if you're looking to get more applications out to market faster, you want to make sure that you're from the top, that you're socializing that these are the goals. Tout benefits for individuals, right? So I think this is important in overcoming some of the hesitance that individuals will have. Make sure people understand how this is going to impact their day-to-day lives, right? And what do we mean by that? We mean that when bringing in automation and the fact this is going to be an enterprise-wide initiative, right? Individuals are going to do more meaningful work, right? We're going to reduce your daily toil and enable and help you so that you can work on more interesting, innovative things rather than just keeping the lights on. Early stage guidance will increase your adoption during the whole rollout. And what do we mean by early stage guidance is, making sure you have that team of people, whether it's, the executive level, management level, that is going to be able to, foster a team. And again, this kind of leads right into the next point of standing up a community of practice. Some people can call it a center of excellence with SWAT team, whatever it is, you need to have a group of people in place. They're going to help you socialize this and make sure you're able to push the tooling out, provide guidance, provide training, provide mentoring, provide preferred practices. So during the rollout, as we were talking about before with the people, process, and technology, right, there's going to be a culture and a collaboration shift, right? And one of the biggest things is, we talked about this a little bit before, is you're going to overcome the myth that implementing IT automation always results in job redundancies, right? This is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and the reality is this is from the report. We're hearing this, but in reality, that's not what happens, right? Automation is really replacing the drudge work and restore some order to your inside your organization. You want to make sure you outline how automation fits into your broader transformation efforts, right? IT automation is only one part of what you're trying to do elsewhere, right? How does this fit into what we're doing on the business process side? Maybe you're using robotic process automation to optimize some things. How does this fit into your overall transformation effort? Enterprise-wide automation is collaborative by nature. Here at Red Hat, and especially around automation, we often say automation is collaboration, right? The only way that you can automate end-to-end workflows across different teams and silos and really get what you want, which is no manual intervention, it's inherently collaborative, right? And by having a platform in place, a single platform, right, you're able to have everyone speaking the same language in a manner of speaking, right? Acknowledge on-the-ground realities and efforts, right? So we want to make sure as people are uptaking the platform and are starting to use it, that we are, kind of cognizant of what the realities are. And by that, I mean both blockers that they encounter, right? So you might say, oh, you have to automate, 15 to 20% of the tasks that you're doing today manually, as a benchmark, as an example, but you got to look at the on-the-ground realities. Maybe they can't get the external integration they need to do a deployment, to get the storage they need, right? It might not be possible. So it's important to understand, what those blockers are, but also to make sure that you are recognizing success at the bottom and making sure you're identifying those teams and those groups that are really making, a lot of progress, and make sure you're folding those efforts back into your COP. All right, and then during the rollout, you need to invest in people, right? This one's maybe somewhat obvious, but it's important, and it's an area that we've heard from, in interviewing customers for these white papers, and I've heard personally, right? Our people just don't know how to use automation. We don't know how to do it, right? And how do you fix that? Well, you need to invest in your people, right? And if you do invest in people, you're going to get more adoption, right? Because you're going to train them, right? You're going to train them on the platform you're using. You're going to train them how to use the technology inside of your organization, right? And just inherently, they're going to want to uptake it. This isn't specific to IT automation, right? This is just a better way of working, that when you have a strategic initiative and you train people on it, they're more likely to uptake the technology, right? And I mean, some of it's tactical. We need to make sure your workforce is trained, so like on the specific technologies you're going to be using. And from a bottom line perspective, the more you train, your resources in your business, right, you're going to maximize your investment, right? You've paid for open source licenses to do automation. You're going to get more return on that investment if people are actually using it. So, we've been kind of talking at a high level, and it's really been about people, process, and technology, and some softer things that you're going to need to do to make sure that you're going to be successful as you try to roll out transformative automation. But when we go down and look at the tech, right, what do we need from an IT automation solution, and what are some characteristics, right? You need to choose a platform, not a tool, right? You need something that's going to support the governance, the standards, scale that you need so that you can actually automate across your whole business and not just one small area. You want to make sure that it supports your diverse ecosystem that you have. You want to make sure that it's easy to adopt, that the technology is consumable. You want to make sure you have a solution that doesn't lock you in, right? You don't want any vendor lock-in. You don't want to take a specialized language and jam it inside of a workflow tool and there it remains. In those cases, I think we've had experience with all those tools, not to name any names, right? But that automation gets jammed in there and maybe just a block of script, and it's kind of lost forever, and there's only 3 people in your business that can update it. Make sure your platform has management tools, right? You need the visibility and the kind of auditing capabilities that you need to make sure you have the visibility that's required by your organization, and then also the tooling to make sure you can do development, right, in an efficient way. And then also, finally, make sure you have a vendor that provides consulting and training solutions, right? So, if you're choosing, the Ansible automation platform, right, that would be Red Hat services that can assist with that, right? So here we are. I don't think there are any surprises here. The Red Hat Ansible automation platform is the platform if you really want to do transformative automation, right? And why? Why is that the case? Maybe compared to some of the others, right? And you can see the bulleted list here. Kind of go through these really quick. The Ansible automation platform is the foundation for an automated enterprise, right? You're going to get your complete support. You're going to have vendor interop, which is critical. Adoption is going to be easier. Massive scalability, right? So you'll be able to scale the platform to meet today's needs, but also tomorrow's needs. Agentless deployment, right? This has been kind of one of the key aspects of Ansible and why a lot of people got started with it, but it's even more important today as we're trying to move into our traditional brownfield environments, and often agent deploys are can be a blocker. And in the networking space, obviously, agentless is the only way. Supported partner content. This is important, right? Red Hat has partnered with a large number of vendors to provide supported collections that are going to enable you to target huge pieces of your infrastructure in a supported way. All right, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about the automation adoption journey that we have, part of Red Hat Services. I am from Red Hat Services, and we are currently out there delivering this journey to a large number of our strategic customers, right? And why did we put it together? Well, because people are using the tooling, right? I think anyone who's here at this talk is using Ansible, probably has used Ansible for a long time. And now, especially over the past few years, a lot of customers have used, have uptaken Ansible Tower in the automation platform. So the automation adoption journey is really in place to kind of get you over the hump, right? You've uptaken the technology, you have it in place, but you've kind of stumbled, right? It's limited on use cases. It's not really, it doesn't cross different team boundaries. So we needed to do something to help you, to get you to the next level, right? And that is the adoption journey. And again, goes back to what we talked about before. It's really focused around technology, process, and culture change, right? We're going to come in, help you build a strategy that represents your journey and where you want to go. We're going to build a foundation. Now, you might be saying, well, I already have a foundation. I've already been doing this, but is it the right foundation? And what we're finding, probably not. It's not set up for you to be successful. And then put together a plan for adoption. How, some of the things we talked about earlier in this paper, which is socializing and making sure people have a body of knowledge that they can reference that's going to help them uptake the technology. And then how do we get individuals to start using it? That's all part of this adoption journey that we've put together. And if we had to say, well, that's great, that sounds good, Mark, but really, if you had to say in a couple sentences, what's it all about? What's the business value going to be out of it? And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase your levels of maturity, right? And we've broken these maturity levels into 5 levels here. And, aware, standardized, proactive, institutionalized, optimized, right? And you can see as you move forward and you become more mature, right, you're going to increase your speed, the scale, and reliability of the automation that you have out there. But maybe more importantly, you're going to reduce the amount of effort per change, right? So the idea is as we move you through the automation journey is we are going to increase your maturity, your overall organizational maturity, so that you can move faster and it's less effort required per change. And then the journey itself, again, you saw the maturity models that we have before, but if we take a look at what is a journey map, really as part of Red Hat Services, we're going to come in and host a Navigate deep dive session, really put together that strategy and the vision for where we're looking to go and prioritize what use cases need to be deployed, followed by a foundation phase, make sure we're laser focused on getting automation out to production, and also seeding an adoption pilot team, right? This adoption pilot team, as we move into increment 2 and 3, is going to become your adoption core team, right? And that adoption core team is going to be like a center of excellence, COP type organization that's going to be guiding others as they move through this journey. And what does that, what does it really look like? And again, this is how we envision it, and when we deliver it, this is what we recommend. We're the adoption core team joint staff between the customer and Red Hat, but also the customer is providing resources, enterprise architect type personas, right? And this adoption core team is feeding into each of the automation teams. And you might be asking, well, what's an automation team? Well, that'd be something within a particular functional area, maybe network operations or network security, maybe infrastructure management, maybe storage. It depends, right? So as you move through, the idea is that we're seeding each individual development team either from people from the core team or the core team is enabling them. Okay, and then kind of a wrap up here on everything we've talked about today, and maybe a little bit of a call to action is to take a look at some of the references. I've presented aspects of the IT executive white paper that we have. You should definitely go and take a look at it. You can see the link right here in the upper left-hand corner. And if you'd also like to take a look at some of the references that fed in to that executive white paper, you can see those right here as well. The other thing I'd recommend you do is take a look at a ready to accelerate assessment, right? So how do you know where you are and what you need to do? Maybe it's not clear to you. Maybe you want Red Hat's perspective on that. I recommend taking a look at the Ready to Accelerate assessment. Go ahead, and if you take a look at the link in the upper hand right, you can go there, answer just a few questions, and it'll generate you an assessment that you can use to decide what your next steps should be. And then finally, if you already have automation in place, it's a priority, and you're looking to scale it. And I don't just mean technology scale; I mean scaling it. From a collaborative social perspective across the business, definitely take a look at our Red Hat Services automation adoption journey. And you can see that link in the bottom right here. All right, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. I appreciate.
Thank you, Mark, for guiding us through the journey. I'm sure the audience has picked up many insights on how to implement and improve their automation capabilities. If you want to learn more on the topic, there is also an executive white paper to download in the resource widget. Also, be sure to get in touch with your Red Hat contacts to get started with a discovery session now. A huge thank you to all our speakers so far. We have covered a lot this morning, but your automation journey is really just beginning. Here's your chance to gain deeper insights and streamline your Red Hat Ansible session by choosing between 2 breakout tracks, the business track or the technical track. Simply click on one of the View Now buttons on your right to begin. We'll see you there.